All right, to discuss this further, we're now joined by David McCuan, who's a professor and chair of political science over at Sonoma State University in California. David, good to have you on the show. So this agreement essentially addressed and removes one of the relatively few disputes between Biden and Trudeau.
That's right. It removes one of those disputes, but there are a number of things going on between the U.S. and Canadian relationship that include immigration, especially the recent surges that have occurred on the border that involve technology, resources, shared security arrangements, things that are related to immigration, but also expand beyond that. So this is an important bilateral meeting. It's an important meeting because you see these two countries that have a long history and long relationship that are clearly good friends, but there are things under the surface that are hugely important. And I think for your viewers, one thing to pay attention here is this is also emblematic of a broader perspective of a more active Biden administration in terms of reaching out and looking at the problems that are going on across the world. You're going to see this, especially as we head closer and closer to the 2024 presidential election.
Let me pick up on that note, David. I mean, we're seeing these two countries, the United States and Canada, sort of in step with each other on a number of issues, whether it's the war in Ukraine, the climate crisis, confronting China. These are just a few. And frankly, the spirit of cooperation certainly stands in stark contrast to the tensions with the previous U.S. administration under Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, what you're seeing here is you're seeing an administration that's going kind of in a full court press to make those previous contrasts clear. They want to do this with the Canadians. They want to do this with their European allies, clearly our NATO members and NATO friends as well. You're seeing this in the Middle East. You're seeing this obviously towards Asia and what's going on with China. The difficulty is really in a domestic politics sense for the Biden administration. So while we have friends to the north and you talk to the Canadians, trying to move the Congress, trying to move House Republicans towards any ratification of recognition of various agreements, or if you will, what's going to happen on the U.S. Senate side for any treaties that might come forth, all of this presents some difficulties or challenges. Those are domestic in nature. And so what you're seeing here is really evidence of the Biden administration being more active. They're going to do this at home over the next year, but they're clearly going to do this across the world. And this is going to be especially important for what's happening with the war in Ukraine and beyond over the next, say, 10 to 12 months.
Since you mentioned domestic politics, I'd like to sort of get your take on essentially sort of the main agenda of this visit of Biden to Canada, and that is migration, more specifically illegal migration, because they pose a different sets of challenges for the leaders of both sides of the border.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point because, look, the Biden administration is trying to draw contrasts with the Trump administration and what they're doing on the border. But this has placed them in a very difficult kind of stance, partly because of what's going on in the southern border and how they're treating those migrants that are coming through. And they don't want to give too much, if you will, airtime to what's happening that Republicans could take advantage of. So the domestic politics around immigration are hugely important. This also affects Prime Minister Trudeau in Canada as well, who's had a lot of pushback in his own domestic political situation. And he's been a darling for so long, it's taken some of the luster off of his own kind of political stardom. For the Biden administration, they want to buoy that up. But at the same time, they have taken a harder line than many Democrats and many migrant activists thought that they would take. We've seen this on climate change, on energy, certainly on foreign policy. This is an administration that's going to be much more fully engaged and active than we've seen in, say, the first 2 years of their administration. It'll be something to watch, especially to draw contrast, not only with others, but certainly with Republicans here in the United States.
All right. David McCuan, thank you very much for joining us here on TRT World. Do appreciate hearing your analysis. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.